Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot. Oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls. I am your host, Patricia Baker, and unfortunately, my co-host, who you know very well, Patricia Kirkman, PK, is unable to join us this evening. She is still dealing with her back pain, back issues. She was at the doctor again today. I'm hoping she's feeling better. I know you are too. And we hope to see her back next week. We've got to catch up on everything going on in this crazy world. And I know PK has all the answers. So hopefully she'll be back and we will all be together again for another great show. But tonight is very special because I have two very exciting people for everybody. And this is a topic we have never really covered. So I'm so grateful that they're available and they're here with us tonight. Let me tell you a little bit about them. And again, this is near and dear to my heart. I love artifacts. I just love them. I wish I could buy so many more than I have. But these folks have made a career out of it, a lifestyle out of it. So welcome to the world of oddities, curated by Regina Rossi and Ryan Matthew Cohn. They are trendsetters, tastemakers who have reinvented what the artifact collectors market looks like. Together, they are the founders of Oddities Flea Market, artfully curating a selection of the best artists and collectors at several events across the U.S. throughout the year. And this is with an eye towards expanding globally. In The Witch's Door, which is their new, most beautiful book, there it is, absolutely incredible book, Ryan, who starred in the reality television show Oddities, and Regina, who comes from the world of fashion, give us a rare peek behind the curtain into the business of collecting the strange and unusual and the cast of eccentric characters they have met along the way. Well, welcome to the show, you guys.
Hi.
Thank you for having us.
Well, as I mentioned off the air, this book is stunning. I mean, my audience here, everybody who's listening and watching this, you have the need for a Christmas gift, a Hanukkah gift, whatever kind of gift. This book is absolutely gorgeous. So I know we showed you the cover. Here it is in real life, real time. It is really beautiful. So think about that for upcoming holiday gifts. So you two have gone into some strange things. It has become your life. Now, you met, you fell in love, you got married, so you're doing this all together for how many years now?
As of November, which I think is in a couple days, it's going to be 10 years married.
Congratulations.
11 years having known each other.
But working together, I would say 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it took me about 2 years to figure out how to leave my 20 plus year, fashion career and figure out how to work with Ryan. So
I would be going on all of these extravagant adventures pretty much every day because I was pretty much doing oddities, collecting, buying, and selling full time when we first met. Because the television show had just wrapped. We had finished like 75 episodes and I was trying to figure out like what my next step was going to be. So naturally it was like going back into the field, and Regina would just kind of get jealous. So she'd like call me during the day and go, "Brian, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm in California right now because I have to like go pick up this collection and try to figure out how to get it here." And she would just get exceedingly jealous about the fact that I was kind of out having fun and enjoying myself while she was, working every single day to get a paycheck. And she, at some point you're like, why am I making this company money when I could probably just do the same thing, apply what you were doing, which was managing fashion brands, and apply it to what I was doing. And that's how we joined forces.
It's a great story. And Regina, you were no slouch. I mean, you were hobnobbing with people like Betsy Johnson, a fashion icon, a real groundbreaker in what she was doing in the fashion world. So you were doing some great stuff too, but you were just magnetically drawn, to Ryan and what he was doing instead.
Absolutely. I mean, he would tell me like who was over at the house, and it would be like just casual, like, oh, Sean Lennon is here and I'm showing him my artwork. His girlfriend's interested in purchasing some. And I would be at work like, what is going on? Especially when I lived there, I'm like, I'm missing this.
You started to bunk off of work too.
Yes, I started calling out, and then I'm like, okay, 20 years. I have a great reputation in New York City. It's time to just resign and figure this out. And that's actually how the Oddities Flea Market was born. I just figured I would take all my knowledge of running a business and just apply it to something that fit our lifestyle and could give a platform to all of the amazing people that we work with. So
you did it. You have done something so unusual and together. Good for you.
Thank you.
But I think one of the things that Regina did in terms of influencing me, just even as a collector, or like my sense of historical knowledge and being able to apply sort of a fashionista look to our place, was she started bringing me to Paris because she was working in Paris a lot of the time. And so I had never really spent any time there except for just on occasion. And so when I first went to Paris, Regina would take me to these elaborate historic churches and buildings. And at first I didn't fight you on it, but I had never really experienced them. And it wasn't until I started to visit some of these locations that I started to become obsessed with that type of decor. And I think that's truly where my sense of an appreciation for death came from. You can blame her Catholic upbringing for influencing our collection.
That's great. Well, you proposed in Paris, didn't you?
Yeah. I'm extremely claustrophobic. It's one of the things that I think a lot of people know now, that I'm very claustrophobic, but I haven't been in an elevator in 25 years or something. And I lived in New York City for 23.
Oh my God. You must have walked up a lot of stairs.
Yes, we do.
That's how I stay thin.
That'll do it.
I made it. I was like, I have to go down into this catacomb. So most catacombs are relatively open and you can walk down there and you don't feel tremendously claustrophobic. But the Parisian one is very, very it's far down below the city.
Deep.
And it's very narrow, and you have to take these winding stairs, which if there's a lot of people, which there's almost always, it can get a little claustrophobic. So I panicked while I was proposing to Regina, but she said yes in the long run.
It wasn't a very romantic proposal. I still laugh about it. It happened very fast. And then by the time I said yes, I looked up, he was gone. He was already halfway up the stairs and left me down there.
There's got to be a talisman or something for that, Ryan. Something that can help you. Gosh.
I agree. Because I always tease them. The day I married Ryan was the day I lost a view. Because everything, like a hotel, we're on the first floor, second floor.
I go up to the fourth floor.
That's terrible, though.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Well, we we have different considerations for our partners, I know. My husband's a bit claustrophobic also, because I have a hyperbaric oxygen chamber and he cannot go in it. Yeah.
She does.
Yeah. You saw me in it and you panicked.
Yeah, I panicked because, she went into one. It was a cloth one, right? Is that the type that you have?
Yeah. It's like a plastic shell.
Yes.
Yeah. So Regina got inside of one of those relatively recently, and I panicked for you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Leave the room. I'm fine.
I'm having the best day laying in here peacefully, and I could hear him on the outside, and I'm like, what? Why are you?
Yeah.
I'm inside, not you.
Right.
Made a fantastic Egyptian mummy.
Exactly.
Oh gosh.
Still time.
Well, your book is just full of remarkable stories, and also how you both got into this. But the exploding skulls, I have never heard of this. Can we start there? Because can you explain more about what that is to the audience?
Sure. So,
That sounds so strange.
yeah, but they're really not that strange. They were made as these educational models for people in the medical field. So when you went to medical school, and still to this day, maybe they've changed the rules and like the laws and stuff, but up until about like 1990, you would be given a human skull as part of the curriculum, and you would use that skull to study every aspect of it. And the exploded skull was basically created for doctors to learn about each bone in the skull, because as you know, the skull is made up of 22 bones and then the ear bones. So there's some other bones as well. But during the 19th century, Claude Bouchain, a doctor, an anatomist, worked with artists to create this interesting model that showcased each bone by separating them by a little piece of metal. The whole skull was placed onto an armature, and it looks or appears to be exploded. All the bones are like slightly separated from one another, and it gives the person learning about the skull the opportunity to look at each bone, the interior, the exterior, the cross sections, and you get a lot more knowledge of each bone than you would just looking at a cranium.
You were interested in that kind of thing from a young age, right?
Yeah, I had an interest in anatomy in general. I was just always fascinated by the human body and the animal body and the skeleton in general, and the differences between that of an animal versus that of a human. Because, growing up, we lived in the woods when I was a kid. So I would just trek out into the woods and find natural history specimens all the time and bring them back. And, I have these fond memories of this little cabinet of curiosity that I started putting together before I was 10 years old. And I think a lot of kids do that, especially those that, live in the wilderness. But I would label them and, put a little specimen date on it and what it was. And I have early memories of doing that, and I still do that today.
So you had a passion for this from the very beginning. Yes. And Regina, this does not creep you out at all, right? You're just fascinated by it too.
Yes. So, I did not grow up thinking about anatomy at all. My father was in fashion, and so I definitely walked in his footsteps. Everything in my life was clothes and shoes and not human skulls, that's for sure. However, being brought up very Italian Catholic, I was very familiar with cathedrals and churches and the macabre artwork that you sometimes find inside of those structures. And so I also was born to very much older parents. And so death was just something that completely surrounded me. Like I was it just became the normal that like once a month somebody passed away. My dad was the youngest of 13 children. So when I say that I was always at a funeral or inside of a church or people were mourning around me, that is just how I grew up. And so I'm somewhat very comfortable with death. And so it was very easy for me to be death positive and then find Ryan and be very comfortable with all of the objects and
the imagery.
Right. You guys are made for each other. There's no question.
It's interesting. I actually can remember I had my grandfather died, and I remember going to the first funeral that ever took place that I was invited or had to go to. And that actually had a very big impact on my life and I think my mindset. And I didn't really think about it until relatively recently. I was probably like 12 or 13 years old. But that was probably the first time that I saw, a dead person.
Yeah. I mean, most children, I would say that's probably the first time as a grandparent or, right?
Yeah. And then there was the ritual of a funeral that went on. And I think it was something that I thought about a lot after it happened.
Yeah. It does have that kind of an effect, a long lasting one. And it is the great equalizer. So yeah, as we all go through it. So The Witch's Door is the title of the book, but it's also one of your artifacts.
Indeed. So the actual Witch's Door was part of, there's a chapter in the book called Nick Parmesan, or he's one of the characters that we speak about in the book. He was this hoarder of a collector. He was extremely talented in the fact that he knew how to cruise an antique show or flea market and find the one good thing that was in that place and leave with it. And
he was unsuspecting. You would have never saw it coming from him by looking at him.
Yeah, his background was that he was an NYPD sergeant.
Oh my!
He actually got sick at 9/11 and was put on leave, and so he was getting these checks every single month, and he was just spending pretty much all of the money on antiques. And at some point, he got into collecting oddities, and that's when we met. And so, long story short, he and I did a lot of business over the years, but he was really hard to deal with. I think that his powers of persuasion as a sergeant, he used them in everyday life, and especially when he was negotiating a deal, especially between the two of us. And so he was really hard to deal with, almost to the point where I had to stop doing business with him. I actually blocked his number at some point. And then we moved to his neighborhood. And soon after that, he passed away. And so when I got in touch with the family, we made a deal, and they said, look, you can't just buy one or two items. You have to take everything.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. And that place was filled floor to ceiling, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So mixed with museum artifacts, were like stacks of T-shirts that had never been opened, and trash, and kitty litter that probably hadn't been changed in a month. It was really
thousands of light bulbs. Thousands of light bulbs in the bathroom, like floor to ceiling light bulbs.
They were Edison filament light bulbs. So he had a fascination with early industrial lighting and mechanical things. He was a prolific collector.
So how in the world did you get everything out of there? I mean, it's like months of work.
Well,
we did it in about 4 to 5 days.
Yeah.
It was in the middle of the pandemic in New York City. So it was not easy, but they gave us a very short window. And so we called everyone we knew. Everyone we knew in Brooklyn was helping, because also it was a 3-story walk-up.
Brownstone.
It was probably some of the best days I've ever had as a collector, because that's the not glamorous part. You see the glamorous part afterwards when you're showcasing an item and it's at its final destination. But let me tell you, this is the unglamorous part.
Your hands dirty. So within this enormous collection was this unassuming door that we just removed one day with a lot of the other artifacts, and we stored it down in our storage area at our home in Connecticut. And I think it took us like a good few months to even get to that door to try to figure out what it is. And he was pretty meticulous on keeping paperwork with everything.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Luckily, yeah.
And you don't always have that. So Nick was great with this stuff. So about a year later, we finally had gone through 10 banker boxes filled with paperwork. And we finally found this one. It's all dirty and beat up and torn. And sure enough, there it was. 17th century witch's door from New England, belonged to this famed collector named Roger Bacon, and gave the basic rundown of where it had come from and what they thought it was. And so we started the book out with the witch's door. We speak about it again in the middle, and then towards the end, we give all the information that we have obtained to this point, and there's still a lot more to learn about it.
It's so curious, because I was listening to some of your other interviews, and it's not clear who was behind the door.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
There's some speculation about that still.
There is. And one of the things, and we didn't notice this until many years later, because of course we always looked at the side of the door that has, not elaborate carvings, they're actually quite crude. But on the other side, there's what looks like scratch marks from a person, and they're very deep, and that's sort of the grisly side. Like the one side is actually relatively pretty, despite the fact that it has this crude witch on top of a cat, and it says Old Jeff, which means old devil. But the back is actually much creepier, and you can tell that it was probably stored incorrectly, or maybe in New England where it was housed. There's some water damage on the bottom, so you have this sort of dark stain, but then these deep scratches on the other side of the door. Which is just, have to assume, pretty grisly.
Yeah. So my understanding is that there are some artifacts like this one that you don't live with. You don't keep that in your house.
No, and I'm not. I think we don't know how to live with it, and it's one of the few items that actually gives me a strange feeling when I'm in its presence. And so we store it in another building altogether for now, and I think we're probably going to put it on exhibit at some point.
That's where I think it belongs. It, you know, we're waiting for professionals in that field to authenticate and just give us more information. That's just going to take time.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You're lucky you got anything at all that he kept a provenance record of that.
Yeah, out of every, I think, collector that we've dealt with, he was definitely one of the best.
Yeah.
Harris. So usually when people buy really high-end antiques and art, you'll have the provenance from, say, Sotheby's, Christie's, Bonham's, or one of like the major auction houses. And with that, you can typically trace an item back to where it originally came from. If it's of a specific value, it means that someone had it, then it was given to someone else, then it was given to someone else. Someone's already done the work for you. But then some objects, which might seem important or have a story attached to them, have no provenance whatsoever. And you have to kind of concoct your own based on what you're looking at and your experience with said object.
Yeah. It's like going on a hunt to try to find where it came from and who owned it and what its purpose was. But gosh, you have, how many objects do you have, would you say? Over 2,000, 3,000?
Oh, God.
Oh, probably like 10,000.
Yeah. And the tens of
Wow.
Yeah. And look, some of it is like stacked early prints that haven't been framed yet, or we have an extensive antiquarian book collection, which is something that I really focus on, or I used to focus on a lot more. But if I'm just like looking at this corner,
there's thousands in this room, just in this library. Like,
oh my gosh.
Pay attention. It's insane.
One day it's going to make some great auction when I'm not here.
Oh gosh. Well, it's wonderful that you've done such a good job keeping track of everything, cataloging it, taking care of it. My goodness, it's a lot of work, I'm sure.
It's a lot of work, but it's why I do this. The adventure that you go on trying to figure out what something is, or learning about something for the first time. I've been collecting since I was a little kid, but there's so many things I'm still learning every time I get an object, and that can spark interest in something from the beginning. I might procure something that I never really knew about, and then suddenly I'm absolutely obsessed and fascinated with that type of object. And so I go down these rabbit holes where I start focusing on certain things based on one piece.
Well, I know what the audience is going to want to hear more about, and that's the creepy feelings that you get from any particular object. So you had some feeling about this door. It didn't quite feel great to you. Was that both of you? You also, Regina, with the door?
Yeah. And I think it comes, for me, it's like, because I don't have all of the information. So then, there's just too many questions. And also, it's not a genre. Like, that door is not something that we normally collect, or, and I don't think we would have ever had in our collection if it wasn't for Nick and the way that the deal went with purchasing everything. So because I don't know enough about it, it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. It also has a very dark history as far as what we know about, people that were accused of witchcraft in the hundreds. That just screams that it's going to have negative energy, but that's not always the case. We have many objects that have an incredibly dark history that don't give any kind of like paranormal energy.
Or dark feeling, or,
right.
I mean, I would say until we moved to Connecticut, which was only 4 years ago, like in Brooklyn, I never felt anything. I never had felt a darkness. It just didn't happen for me.
We tried to. We were like, very open to the idea of, paranormal activity and energy presenting itself in either a positive or negative way. And up until pretty recently, we hadn't experienced that. And so, while we were writing the book, it happened.
With the ventriloquist dolls, was that the one you were talking about? Please tell about that. Because dolls to me, are the creepiest things in the world, because there's a lot of strange energy that I've seen collect around dolls. So don't own any. I haven't owned any. I don't think I ever will, because it seems to attract some very strange things. But you had an actual experience with these. So what happened?
So what happened was I was doing what I've always done, and that is, procuring things, and dolls are one of the things that I have an attraction to. And I think that I always have, actually. There's a whole chapter in the book. I forget what it's called, but it's called like
Welcome to the Dollhouse.
Welcome to the Dollhouse. That's what it is. And that's about my fascination with dolls. And I think that there's something anatomical that I like about dolls. And I think that's what attracted me to them, and what probably still attracts me to them. Mm-hmm. But the story is basically this. I had been offered these 12 ventriloquist Charlie McCarthy dolls. And I purchased all of them, and I sold 10 of them and kept the 2 that I thought represented the Charlie McCarthy doll the best. They had an interesting patina. They were old, but still in very good condition. They still had their little hats on. And, while I didn't have any interest in learning ventriloquism, they sat in the library just sitting on this little leather chair that we had there. And, they were perfect little gentlemen. They never gave us any problems until one day I went into that room, which is a small room just off of the room that we're sitting in now. And they were sitting on the floor, but they didn't look like they'd been knocked over. They were just, instead of sitting in the chair, they were sitting in front of the chair, leaned up against them. I just figured that Regina moved them and didn't think much of it. I didn't even ask her about it. I'd say like a couple weeks later, or a month later, same thing, but they were sitting on the other side of the room together, propped up. I think one of them had like fallen forward. The other one was sitting upright. And then this happened one other time where they were sitting kind of near the top of the stairs. So when you would walk in the door, there's actually a taxidermied monkey that's sitting in a throne, and the dolls were sitting like right in front of it. So someone moved them, or so I thought. And I couldn't really explain it. And that's when I would say, like, Regina, did you move the dolls? And she swore she didn't. I thought maybe the cleaning person that helps us out every so often had moved them. And
I'm like, there's no way. She doesn't touch anything that she doesn't have to.
She's also creeped out by stuff like that. Right. She just leaves it alone. I wouldn't say she's creeped out. She's used to it at this point, but she does not touch my things. And she's instructed not to. And so the other thing that happened was what you experienced with the footsteps.
And I also never thought much about it, because if you've never had a paranormal, incident, and I'm not sure that I even believed in it at all, especially because of all the things that have come into my life. We're really going to talk about dolls, like bringing some vibe in my house. Like, it just didn't make sense. But I would be downstairs in the kitchen area, and I would hear footsteps, and I would just assume they were my dogs. But then there were times when then I realized I'm looking at all 3 dogs, and I'm like, okay, so maybe it's the wood floors. It's my first time owning a home in, Connecticut. And my God, maybe it's just like the house settling. Like, the house is old. It's Victorian, 1874. So I would just make excuses constantly because I just didn't pay the dolls any attention.
We would do that a lot, I think, in general. And I have a feeling that we've experienced these types of things numerous times, but being very skeptical and being just too, I think, obsessed with scientific fact. We've always said, all right, well, if this happened, it was probably this, that, and the other thing. And instead of just saying oh, maybe it's the object giving us some kind of strange activity, we would always try to come up with a conclusion instead of saying oh shit, these dolls just haunted us. And that's exactly what they ended up doing. And we don't entirely know what happened, other than we photographed them for the book because we had spoken about them just in terms of them walking around apparently and moving around the room. And so when it came time to shoot them, the photographer said, hey, you got to ask their permission. And we were like, screw these dolls. They're just made out of cardboard.
He was a friend of ours. So we were kind of laughing because how do you go from you just shot a Tibetan Kapala skull to a shrunken head, but now it's the dolls that you want to speak to? And we just thought that was a little funny. And I'm not kidding. The second that we started laughing, the jaw drops, right?
Yeah, both of their mandibles just basically popped out of their heads, which is very strange because The mandibles are held in there by a metal rod that goes through the interior of the head, and then it's attached to a little string. And we noticed that the strings have both been cut. Like they were frayed. So they weren't even like just cut. It looked like someone had like taken something and cut them like this. And so that really freaked me out. And then came an entire series of unfortunate events involving the house, where basically the room where they were in, right above it, water just started leaking down into my antiquarian book collection.
Oh, God.
The heat went off in my tenant's cottage that we have on our property. Our venues shut down. Our cars blew up. And it wasn't until basically I packaged these things up to get the hell out of my house that everything basically went back to normal.
But we had been talking to a friend of ours who is very familiar with haunted objects, because we had to call all of our friends that were in the paranormal world, because once again, we had never experienced anything. I was told I was doing everything wrong because I was like taking sage and burning it. And, you know, I was told that actually only annoys them more.
Oh, gosh.
It's like you're bringing the fact that they're haunting you to the forefront or something. I forget how she explained it, but, you know, we basically thought we were going to need an exorcism. But the other side of the coin was that people were really interested about the story. And so I had this quandary on my hands where I was like, do I keep them and sort of exploit them on Instagram? But in the end, it wasn't worth the terror that they were taking over our lives, and they were making life dangerous.
The amount of money that we had to spend within the 30 days that all of these things were happening was absolutely insane. Like 2 new cars, changing the heat in a cottage. Like, we still have a hole in our ceiling. We still haven't even dealt with some of it because there was so much damage.
Gosh, just incredible. Well, this is why I don't like the doll thing, but you lived with it. And it is very challenging, especially when you don't understand what's going on or why. So did they give you, the people you talked to, any explanation for why things turned so dark with these dolls?
They said 2 things to us. So the person that took them, also, Ryan has never given away anything in our collection ever. So, you know, it's a big deal when he packages something up and he sends it to you.
Right.
They said that either somebody possibly cursed us, right?
Maybe.
Or what was the second?
Well, something very interesting that I didn't think about until much after the fact was the guy that I purchased the dolls from had purchased them from a woman who had passed away in Fairfield County near where we live. And the family was selling, you know, her estate, and she was a pretty avid doll collector. Mm-hmm. And she said something to him, and he mentioned it to me when I was purchasing them, but I didn't think about it because people say a lot of different things when you're buying things, especially, you know, creepy dolls.
Yeah.
And the daughter of the person that passed away said this: I'm really happy that you're buying these. My mom always said these dolls need a place where they can thrive and have the space to move around that they need.
Wow. That was a hint.
Yeah, but you know, when someone says something like this to you, especially when you're buying early in the morning, you're like, oh yeah, hey, cool, man, whatever you say. Yeah, they're creepy. I'll put that in the title when I'm selling them. Yeah. I didn't think about it twice until we were writing the book, and I was like, oh my God, man, I remember what Robert had said to me, and sure enough, it like made a lot of sense.
But we did also contact the buyers of the 10 dolls that we didn't keep, because we would do these auctions once a month via Oddities that became very popular. And I kept really good records, so I knew who purchased them. And none of them have had an issue with any of the other dolls that came from that grouping.
Just us.
What about the person you gifted these to?
Yes, so that's interesting.
Well, she's become she already had a huge following of people that love to hear her stories and learn more about the objects in her collection, because she deals in haunted objects. Mm-hmm. And she actually started to have really bad luck too, almost right out the gate.
Wow.
So
okay.
At one point, she told you she wasn't even driving because
she was too scared.
She was too scared to drive because things kept happening.
Yeah, my car actually started to glitch tremendously. I think the UPS store that I took them to get rid of them that day, it's probably about a mile away from our house. My car started groaning, and the gears were not shifting right. And mind you, I have pretty much a brand new SUV. And it wasn't until I got this box out of my car, it never made that sound ever again. So there was something dark
Yeah.
attached to those dolls, and I still don't know exactly what it was, but I'm glad that it's out of our lives.
She had to do a salt bath before we shipped them. So we had to take a bath, right, with a ton of salt, and then you had to put them in a box with salt. I wasn't there for it. So.
Oh, goodness. Well, that's some powerful energy that can affect mechanical things like that, and water leaks, and that's really some powerful stuff. And who knows where it came from.
At that point, I was willing to try anything. And so that's why I went through the salt ritual. You have to understand, like, I have dealt with extremely rare objects. And then, of course, it's like these inexpensive dolls that I purchased that ended up giving me bad juju.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What about things from Egyptian tombs? I know you've had some experiences talking with museums that have had mummies and all of that, but what about actual artifacts that come out of those tombs in Egypt? Have you dealt with that at all?
I have, and I've never had any kind of like negative experience from them, but I actually had a full Egyptian mummy at one point, and I dealt with an Egyptologist. He came over to the house, and we took everything out of the sarcophagus and laid it out on a table that's downstairs. And it turned out that it was probably the mummy of a very poor family, because we found a lot of extra bones in their sarcophagus. So it was probably like,
another relative?
Yeah, it was like the husband, probably the wife. And I ended up finding the small mummified hand of a child mummy that was in the sarcophagus. But I ended up getting rid of it because it just wasn't in good enough collection to keep here, and it ended up going to a museum.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah. With the museums that you've had dealings with, we've heard a lot on the show from archaeologists and the gentleman Graham that's now starring in the Ancient Apocalypse series. They differ with traditional archaeology and timelines. And we've heard a lot of stories from people like him on the show, how museums have gotten rid of things that conflict with their timeline. Either they put them in the dump, or they've done whatever they want to do to get rid of these things, and even bones of giants. Have you heard of anything like this? Do you know about this?
Not specifically about giants, but what has happened pretty recently, I'd say in the past 5-10 years, is that museums are getting rid of all of their human remains from their museums. I know Pitt Rivers Museum in England got rid of all human remains. The Museum of Natural History in New York got rid of all of their human remains. They are not on display anymore, which is strange because they have the remains of, primates, and next to it is a plastic human skeleton, which is a lot more difficult to educate yourself about the human body. I mean, I guess it's relatively similar, but it's just doesn't compare to the real thing. And it's the same thing for other museums. Things like shrunken heads have been repatriated back to Ecuador. But many of those situations are cases where these countries don't want the artifacts. They don't have a way to really display them or facilitate them. So they end up being in dusty old lockers and storage units, and they never really see the light of day. And I think that's almost more dangerous, erasing history rather than learning something from it, or maybe putting it in a place where
the damage is.
Yeah, they can get damaged pretty easily. And I think what happens is the museums don't want the negative press. And so instead of, maybe learning more about them or trying to obtain better provenance, they just get rid of them.
Yeah, I remember years ago in Connecticut, there was a lot of outcry about Native American skeletons that were in museums. And the museums at the time were told, you need to get them out of their glass cases and reintern them, but rebury these skeletons. And they brought in Slow Turtle, who was a Native American medicine man at the time, to conduct the ceremony and give a proper burial to that skeleton. It was quite powerful. I remember being there for that, and it had been pouring rain, and 2 Native Americans had been tasked with keeping the fire going as a part of the ritual during this ceremony. And they had to keep it going all night when it was just cats and dogs pouring. But when Slow Turtle arrived, it was still raining, and he got out of the car and it stopped raining. And he walked over to the gravesite and he did the ceremony, and they buried the skeleton, and Slow Turtle got back in his car and it started pouring again. And it was just, an amazing experience of power of Native American medicine. But there was a lot of concern about these things that were in museums when they really shouldn't have been. So
sure, in a situation like that, I fully agree. I think that it deserved a proper burial. If they knew that it was a Native American skeleton, it certainly didn't belong. I don't know how they were being housed or toted in the museum, but I'm sure it didn't have any real significance other than the fact that it was probably just a skeleton.
Right.
Use a medical one for that, or maybe you don't need it at all. I don't know. It's still up for conversation and interpretation. I'm just not a huge fan of burying art and history, even if it's a dark one.
No, I'm not either. I think it's absolutely horrible. And I've heard other stories that are very concerning that would really give us some accurate information about a true timeline. And the museums don't want to have anything to do with it because it just conflicts with what they are telling everybody to believe. So it's a shame. I don't know if you're familiar with the dinosaur ceramic artifacts in Acambaro, Mexico that were discovered. And the gentleman that brought them here, one of them, he was the person who built the Bell helicopter, designed and built it. And he was very much interested in paranormal, and he heard about these artifacts. He brought them up from Acambaro, some of them. And the problem with them was they showed people and dinosaurs together.
Oh.
And the museum, he wanted to donate these to a museum, and the museum wouldn't have anything to do with it. They just said they've got to be fakes again because it didn't go along with their timeline.
Right.
But he did say that he had some of them in his office, and they creeped him out. And he was not somebody who got creeped out easily.
Interesting. That's something that happens kind of frequently as well, is that an item will be dug up in, say, like Arizona, or, a place where a lot of archaeological finds are discovered. And if the person who owns the land did not dig those up and try to sell them, and they don't have the proper paperwork, that stuff gets taken out of auctions all the time. I think it happened to Leonardo DiCaprio, or Nicolas Cage had purchased a skeleton, or I think it was a dinosaur skull from heritage auctions, and they had to end up giving it back. So it was a huge controversy.
Well, here's what happened with this. This is the end of the story. He gave it to a scientist in Ossining, New York, and she took one of these ceramics. It was called a creator doll, a creator ceramic, and she put it in a cage with white mice. And when she came in the next morning, she looked at the mice and she couldn't believe what she was seeing. The creator doll had fluted ears. All of the mice had fluted ears. And this is a scientist, looking at all this with absolutely no explanation, but clearly these things carried an energy that was powerful enough to influence a biological change in these mice. So there's so much to this that we still have yet to uncover. And here you guys are on the leading edge with all of these artifacts that you caretake. Very exciting what you're doing.
Thank you. Those, I would be interested in seeing those artifacts that you were speaking of, just to see, because of what you were mentioning with people mixed with
dinosaurs. I can send you a link and you guys can take a look at it. I was trying to get my hands on some, but it's not the easiest thing to find. You probably could.
Maybe.
But fascinating. But things like that, the Peruvian whistling vessels, which are so unique, all of these things are, I know the audience finds these just beyond fascinating. They're just great to hear about, and the effect that they still have after all these years of being buried or forgotten, and then they're brought out, and there's something to this. There's something to the energy of them.
There can be, but then with those legitimate artifacts come a lot of fake ones. And there's a rich history of faking antiques and artifacts. And I've been duped many times over the years.
Really?
I think it would have been interesting to keep a cabinet of all the fake things that I've heard over the years, just to show people the difference between, hey, this is a fake object versus one that is legitimate. because it does happen. I see things at auction all the time that are not real.
Yeah. And it is hard to tell, isn't it? Sometimes if they can fool somebody like you guys, they can fool somebody else who has no training, no experience at all.
I mean, gaps have become harder.
Yeah, like in the true oddities world, there are gaps. I mean, I've seen fake shrunken heads sold as authentic ones, and they were very clearly made out of some kind of polymer or other type of material.
What is the deal with shrunken heads? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, the deal with shrunken heads is they were typically done by the Ecuadorians, and they were a ceremonial process, and quite a grisly, dark one, where the Jivaro Indians would go and hack the heads off of their enemies. They would take the skin off of the skull, throw the skull into the river, and then they would start the process of basically shrinking the skin. So there's this big misconception that there's a little tiny head that's been mysteriously shrunken into this baseball-sized head, but that's not the case. It's basically like taking the skin, like a taxidermied skin, but not wrapping it around the form and not basically keeping the shape, but taking that skin that's wet, simmering it, and then slowly starting to shrink it over heat, almost like wet leather in a dryer is the best way to explain it. And they wear these things around there. What's that?
It doesn't involve the bones. It's just the skin of the head.
It's just the skin. It's basically like sewn up in the back. The eyes are sewn shut, and it's sort of dysmorphed. And what the Indians were doing was trapping the soul inside of the head, because they believed in the afterlife they could still go on battling their ancestors. They were trapping the soul inside of there, and they would usually put a ring around the top of it, and they'd wear it as a necklace to show their prowess as a warrior.
Okay. I was wondering, there had to be some reason for what they were doing. Did they also use them in any kind of dark magic, or it was just to control them?
I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of. But they became very popular in the late 19th century, into the turn of the century, by people looking to expand their cabinets of curiosity. And as a result, a lot of different versions of these things came about. So there was the true ceremonial versions that are, mostly housed in museums and private collections at this point. But then there was a dark trade of people taking cadaver heads and making them look like authentic shrunken heads.
Tourist trade.
Yeah, those would be referred to as tourist trade heads. And I think there was enough of an urge to buy these things that there's probably hundreds of them out there.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
Yeah, that is. Now, how about the prettier stuff like jewelry? Have you found some really unusual pieces of jewelry?
I mean, I think when we first met, I think we were a bit more into mourning jewelry and hair wreaths. I feel like we don't have as much anymore.
Well, we sold a lot of it, but yeah, there was a period of time during the Victorian era where, when someone passed away, you would take a locket of their hair, or even more artistically, you would fashion a little braid of the person who had passed away, and you would make either you would put it in an amulet, or there's even jewelry that's made out of human hair, and it would be used to remember those who have passed away. If you've ever seen a mourning wreath, what they're referred to as, it could often be an entire family of people that passed away, and they would be fashioned into these like little flowers, which were then made into a wreath, and they were framed and put on the wall, and that was how you would remember the dead. And they're very artistically rendered, and some are more elaborate than others. But that's something that people actually collect today, and it's still actually a process that's done today, but it's more taking the processes of the Victorian era and applying them to now. We're very close-minded to death and today, so I don't feel like there's a lot of people that do it anymore.
We have a couple that we work with for the Oddities Flea Market, because I feel like it's a dying art, like no pun intended. And those artists are very popular. A lot of people collect their pets' hair, and they'll make mourning jewelry out of that. Even ashes, right? There's a lot of jewelers that work with ashes.
I mean, we're incredibly attached. Obviously, we're attached to our family members, our friends, and pass away. But people are also, very in tune with their pets, and so when they pass, there needs to be a way that you can remember them besides, or like tattooing one on your arm or something. Which I find very interesting now, because tattoos are obviously incredibly popular today, and I feel like people have become the modern versions of the cabinet of curiosity, because now you can like look at someone and their body almost tells a story through the artwork that's tattooed on them.
Yes, yes, exactly. Wow. Now, is there anything that you don't have in your collection yet that you would like to have?
Oh,
Yeah, there's some things.
I thought you were going to ask, is there anything you won't collect? And I will just answer that.
Yes, please.
Serial killer stuff is not, and we're not into it, period, but it would never be allowed in my home.
Yeah, I mean, talk about a dark energy. That would be like
not glorifying a serial killer here.
Right.
That's not happening.
Right.
But there's a piece that you
there's
you
like
lost.
100.
Yeah, like there's always the piece that you didn't get that you're always going to think about.
Yeah, I think about it, but we have put together like such a cohesive collection at this point, enough that I want to try to do an exhibition next year on a couple different collections, including the Richard Harris collection, the Nick Parmesan collection, and just other pieces that I've collected over the years. I don't really need anything else, but is there, stuff that I wish we had in the collection? Of course. I don't think a collector's work is ever done until they're buried. And, you can't take it when you go. So it's all stuff that I think about when, I get interested in something. But I have enough subject material here that I have my work cut out for me.
Oh, you sure do. So many mysteries still. I'm sure, right?
Sure.
This is amazing. Oh, I love your lifestyle. It's so neat. That's fantastic. Well, you mentioned you have dogs. Do they react to anything?
No, and that's actually why I always said I feel mostly at peace. And it really wasn't until this last year that we had anything out of the ordinary happen. And I always felt like they would alert me first. I mean, my God, they know if somebody's pulling up in the driveway before I do.
Yes.
They are the most calm, cool, and collected dogs. So,
but I do think that animals have a sense when there's something sort of strange in the house.
Yeah.
Like a dog will stare at a radiator for 8 hours, or they'll, start barking at something in the basement doesn't appear to be anything.
Right.
I like bringing the dogs around the house. They give me a lot of safety. Even my little 6-pound Shih Tzu.
You have a Shih Tzu too? So do I.
Oh, do you? Ours is an Imperial Shih Tzu.
We're obsessed with him.
Yeah, ours is named Herman.
They are like little people, aren't they?
Such silly creatures.
Herman's a little person.
Yes, they're like little people. They're amazing dogs. I've had several. I have one now. He's a big boy. He's 18 pounds.
Wow. Ours is like 7 pounds.
Yeah, ours is tiny.
That's what mine was supposed to be. The breeder said, he's not going to be bigger than the parents. They're only 9 pounds. I'm like, he's 18 pounds. What happened?
If you look at my Instagram, I put up a lot of pictures of Herman.
He's holding always.
I'm going to go look for sure. Would you please keep me posted about any displays you're going to do when you put your items up? I know people would love to see them. So if you let me know, I'll put it up on our Facebook page.
For sure.
Thank you.
Be aware that you're doing this. This is
something that I've been toying around with for many, many years.
It feels like the next step.
Yeah, I think that would be the next step. And I think maybe if there's like a second book, it would focus more on what the exhibition is going to focus on, which is...
Well, I'm excited to come and see it. So please make sure we know. And unfortunately, we've run out of time. This has been so exciting talking to you both. So thank you so much. And again, keep us posted on your plans for your exhibitions. Love to know, and we'll help promote it as well.
Will do. Thank you, Patricia.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Take care. And everybody will be back next week with another great show. Until then, we will see you on the Blue Highway. Good night.